Dr. Khodadad, would you like to mention anything before we get into reading the flow of plans of growth for chapter 3?
Actually, I was quite pleased the way it went last time, that you requested people to read, and then there were discussions and at times input from me. So I don't know whether anyone has any question about the rationale of this book, why I wrote this book, because I have felt and I continue to feel that the message of Baha'u'llah and what is now we are discussing is so powerful that it requires a much higher level of growth. So that's why I wrote this book, and then I came up with various metaphors that relate to science. What is the process of growth, and how could it possibly be taking place, and what are those essential elements for growth?
And we're so
Some may
grateful.
wonder why I wrote this book. In fact, some have even expressed that by your writing the book, are you saying we are not growing? And in fact, I am, in relationship to what the Baha'i faith is and what it presents. Our growth should be much higher than that. And it probably could compel each one of us to think and reflect why and how we could grow at that level.
Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much, because that is the question. And I noticed that you beautifully did touch on it on this chapter that we're going to read today, on this section 3. And that was profound. In two places in section 3, chapter 3, you mentioned the whys. At least you touched on that, and that's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, so friends, before we begin, who would like to volunteer to read chapter 3? Probably one or two readers would be sufficient. And as you're thinking about who you want who wants to volunteer, I just want to touch upon just a few of the highlights of what our homework was. Just for friends who possibly don't have the book and are doing catch up when they listen to these recordings. So one of the topics that we were reading as our homework assignment was the plans of the Baha'i world induce transition in phases. And that comes with the 4-year plan, the 1-year plan, all the plans that we have. And then we read of the new phase of growth, the portals of entry, the open networks, social surface, the major and minor plans of God. And Dr. Khodadad really goes into those, and then she has a summary and conclusion. So if that's a teaser for you to go back and read those, because maybe you forgot to, please do, because it'll help you. Okay, any volunteers for the flow of plans and growth? Thank you, Karen. And let's start with you, Karen, and then I can jump in until someone else volunteers. Please.
Okay, great. The flow of plans and growth. And oh, ye heralds of the golden age, promise of prophets, dream of every sage. The master calls ye, rise ye up and go, to spread the news that all the world may know. Whoops, sorry. The worldwide growth and advancement of the Baha'i community, inspired by the vision of Baha'u'llah for the transformation of society, have been guided by the flow of a sequence of coherent and systematic plans directed by the successive world heads of the Baha'i faith. Phases in the growth of religions. In general, the growth of religions advances through several distinct phases. The earliest phase marks the critical period, similar to the development of a human embryo. It is the time for laying down the foundation of essential structures in order to develop in time into systems which can assure its continuing viability. It is a period of extreme vulnerability as well as of enormous possibilities. In comparison to the growth of a plant, a religion must, during its critical period, germinate and send out roots. The succeeding phases must address the establishment of a more extensive root system, as well as the upward growth of shoots and production of buds toward the consummation of its mission, its fruition. The outward growth of a religion implies significant outreach, expansion in geographical spread, and increase in the population of those devoted to its beliefs and principles. In time, these must culminate in the fulfillment of its mission, the transformation of society and advancement of civilization. Essential to all these phases is that growth in quality be sustained, thus assuring that the religious community remains faithful to its central vision and the spirit that must continue to animate it. The earliest phase, the period of revelation. The earliest phase in growth of religions is a period of revelation. It is associated with the heroic figure of its prophet founder, who announces his mission as the bearer of truth from a higher realm. Like a magnet, he attracts the first group of devoted disciples and followers. His awesome claim brings on intense persecution, imprisonment, exile, and martyrdom directed at himself and also at his followers. This period is characterized by drama, zeal, fervor, and ardor. Those converted become transformed and enkindled with love and devotion. At first, increase in the number of its adherents may be small. Passion, however, is at a high point, attracting in turn hostility. New rounds of persecution spur higher levels of dedication and consecration, unleashing powerful forces, a major impetus to growth. Action is heroic, dedicated, and focused. Sacrifice in the path of the new religion is the hallmark. The early phase in growth of all religions, including Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and the Baha'i and Baha'i faiths, attests to the adage that the blood of martyrs waters the growth of the tree of religion. The period of revelation of the great religions of the world has been of varying duration. In Christianity, 3 years. In Islam, 23 years. In the Baha'i faith, 6 years. And in the Baha'i faith, 39 years. The period of revelation associated with the dispensation of the twin manifestations, the Bab, the forerunner to Baha'u'llah, and Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, spanned respectively a period from 1844 to 1850 and from 1853 to 1892, an expanse of time unprecedented in the annals of world religions.
May I make a comment here that this period of revelation in the Baha'i faith, including that of Baha'u'llah, the Bab and Baha'u'llah, has been unprecedented in religious history. When you add those numbers together, it's been a significant period of revelation where we have the sacred writings authenticated, the sources are available.
Thank you.
I can't hear you, Netta.
Yeah, no, I just said thank you. And Karen,
Oh.
do you want to continue reading or are you good?
I can continue for a little while.
Okay, yeah, and then I'll help if someone else.
Okay, all right. The first century, the phase of early growth, the first century in the history of religions marks the period of their initial expansion. In its first centuries, Christianity spread to a limited number of localities surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. The initial phase of expansion of Islam had its beginning during the lifetime of Muhammad. It continued with the advance of Islam to the west and culminated in the invasion of the Iberian Peninsula in 716 AD, 86 years after the death of Muhammad in 630 AD. The Baha'i faith, by the end of its first century, had already expanded far beyond the land of its birth to countries in the Eastern and Western hemispheres, and including the Northern and Southern hemispheres.
Now, a point here, this is really a significant comparison that the Baha'i faith in its first century, at the end of its first century, had made so much advance both in the Eastern and Western hemisphere. I think that is quite awesome. Awesome, but it has been the will of God. So when we compare the growth of Baha'i faith to compare of other religions, and we may wish to compare that because we are at a relatively early stage in this, we realize that by comparison, the Baha'i faith, the growth has been significant by comparison to growth of other religions.
Can I ask a question at this point? Is it appropriate to ask a question right now? So, aside from what seems like a simple answer, because because of Baha'u'llah being the latest manifestation of God, what elements exist that make this dispensation so different? Why is the rapid growth? What happened? What are the elements that are speeding this up, that is making it so expansive? Why is it different?
Well, because of the message that is brought for our times, very quite relevant. And also, I believe that the 10-year global crusade that was initiated and launched by the guardian of Baha'i faith, Shoghi Effendi, had a major impetus to this growth. The 10-year global crusade, yes.
Thank you.
And of course, its message is relevant to our times.
Right.
Maybe others have other contributions to this question, to the answer to this question.
So maybe does it have something to do specifically with the evolution of humanity? Like the earth is one country. We understand that concept right now, so it could go around the world, whereas before that concept was unknown. So that could be the answer to the limitation in the expanse. I don't know.
That's an excellent thought. It plays into it, of course. It's more relevant to our times, and hence the response to it has been more enthusiastic because it's more relevant to our times. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, and I also want to add, it's the intelligence, right, of people. So, and that's what the Kitab-e-Iran teaches us, right? The absurditude. There were so many veils, so many distractions. People, they just couldn't see, or they couldn't hear, and then you have in the Bible, right, Revelation 3:12, which tells us that something's coming, right? So it's that intelligence and that need for wanting to learn, that desire.
Okay. Netta, you want to read now? I'll take a break.
Sure. The
Thank you.
2nd century, the phase of continuing growth. An extensive discussion which compares the growth of the Baha'i faith to all other major religions of the world is neither the intent nor within the scope of this book. In the following discussion, the growth of the Baha'i faith is compared to that of Christianity, the predominant religion in the West. In drawing such comparisons, one should be mindful that rapid travel and communication, conditions of our times, must have influenced the growth of the Baha'i faith. Such conditions have been significantly different from those entailed in the growth of Christianity. On one hand, such factors can augment the rate of growth of the Baha'i faith. On the other hand, they also increase the noise, distractions produced by a plethora of groups and movements, thus making it more difficult to see, to discern the genuine. The growth of Christianity and the Baha'i faith during their second century may be compared in two respects: geographical spread and increase in the number of their adherents. The expanse and extent of the growth of the Christian faith during this period can be used for comparison to the growth of the Baha'i faith, now in its second century, since the formal assumption of Baha'u'llah of his prophetic office in 1863. Geographical spread. In the second century of the Christian era, the spread of Christianity remained limited to a small number of localities in the Roman Empire, whose boundaries were set in the west by the Atlantic Ocean, in the north by the Rhine and Danube rivers, in the east by the Euphrates River, and in the south by Arabia and Africa. These early communities were called home churches, as they met in homes. Compared to Christianity, over the same span of time, the spread of the Baha'i faith across the globe is noteworthy. Furthermore, it is of particular interest that a vast majority of these Baha'i communities also meet in the homes of believers rather than in structures devoted to congregational gatherings. Several sources provide data on the Baha'i faith and compare these to statistics on the 2,000 years of Christianity and the 1,400 years of Islam. More recent statistics published in 2005 show that Baha'is reside in over 120,000 localities, and that there are 236 countries and dependent territories where the Baha'i faith is established. These figures, when compared to the number of localities and countries opened to the Baha'i faith by 1921, when Shoghi Effendi became its guardian, highlight an increase of over sixfold in the number of localities and a significant increase in the number of countries and dependent territories where Baha'is reside. It can be reasonably surmised that the worldwide spread achieved by the Baha'i faith in the approximately 160 years since its founding has been exceptional. The Baha'i faith includes within its fold a wide diversity of indigenous tribes, races, and ethnic groups. Its sacred texts have been translated into over 800 languages. These measures point to propitious conditions for its continuing growth as it endeavors under the plans of the Baha'i world to diffuse the message of Baha'u'llah throughout the world. Number of adherents, avowed believers. Accurate statistics are not available on the number of Christians during the mid-2nd century of the Christian era. According to the testimony of Origen, the proportion of faithful was very inconsiderable when compared to the multitude of an unbelieving world. Notwithstanding the paucity of data, several sources have deduced estimates of 40,500 for the number of Christians 150 years after Christ, and 60 million for the population of the Roman Empire. Should we choose to use these figures, the number of Christians constituted approximately 0.068% of the population of the Roman Empire. As the spread of Christianity was limited to the Roman Empire, this percentage would be significantly smaller if it were possible to take into account the total population of the world, albeit much of it unknown and yet undiscovered at that time. Data from several sources provide variable estimates on the total number of Baha'is worldwide in approximately 160 years of the Baha'i era. It should be noted that these figures for the number of Baha'is are at best approximations. The statistic for the total number of Baha'is is based on registered members. There are reasons to believe that there are significant numbers who view their convictions in line with the Baha'i faith and maybe consider themselves Baha'is, though not formally registered. This may explain the larger number of Baha'is reported by some sources. In any case, Using the lower estimate of 5 to 5.5 million for the number of registered Baha'is throughout the world and the current world population of 7.4 billion, Baha'is constitute approximately 0.07% of the entire world's population. This is comparable to the percentage of Christians of the population of the Roman Empire in the early years of Christianity. Notwithstanding this favorable comparison, the number of Baha'is is nevertheless a small percentage of the entire world population. Wow, that's really putting it into perspective. The current strategies of the plans of the Baha'i world involve the participation of populations who are registered Baha'is, as well as those who are attracted to the vision of the Baha'i faith, but not registered at this time. One can surmise the likelihood of significant influence and growth over time through the cohort effect of such populations. The term cohort effect is used in a number of disciplines on the study of populations defined by some shared temporal or common life experience. The cohort effect is relevant to this discussion in that it is the effect of all those, whether registered Baha'is or not, who have the common experience of participating in and supporting the community building efforts of the Baha'is. Thus, the cohort effect can serve as a powerful path to growth, transformation, and advancement of the Baha'i faith. Yes, Derek, please unmute yourself.
Oh, to me, what this is saying is there's two different dynamics here. One is spread, and the other is actual. One is growth in terms of spread, and the other is actual growth in terms of numbers. Would that be fair to say it that way?
Oh, please unmute yourself, Dr. Khodadad.
Maybe in a way, but the two are interrelated intimately.
Derek?
Well, but the way I'm looking, the way I'm reading this is that our spread in terms of geographic spread is much wider.
Yes.
But in terms of percentage numbers, it's very similar, if that makes sense.
I guess that could be one aspect of that.
Mhm.
But there are also other aspects which are going to play into that over time or even at this time, which could affect growth.
Yeah, and Derek, are you referring to the percentage of her comparison of the Roman Empire back during the Christianity phase?
Yes, I'm comparing, because to me that number's almost identical.
Exactly, exactly. 0.068
our
and
spread is much wider
0.07.
but our spread is much wider in terms of geography.
Mhm. Mhm. And this question brings this point just so striking to me because I loved it. When I read it, I loved it. It still evokes this reflection that why Baha'i faith is not growing faster with all of these wonderful healing message that the Baha'i faith has. And that is, I think, one of the aims of the author and the writer here, to take us through this process of growth. Now, going back to page 69, which under the title, the second century, the phase of continuing growth, I love this statement is almost in the middle of that paragraph. It says, on one hand, such factors can augment the rate of growth of the Baha'i faith, which is communication, all the accessibility. Now the world is just so close. Okay. Most of the time I was stuck in that. And my question would be then why the growth is not faster? But now here's my answer. On the other hand, and I love this, they also increase the noise, distractions produced by a plethora of groups and movements, thus making it more difficult to see, to discern the genuine. And I really love this because that is the story of our time. And we are going to read it more on page 101 on this subject because many question this. And this is the answer. We really have to reflect upon the condition of our time. Thank you for bringing this and explaining this way, Jena. Thank you.
Are you saying that the distractions also is your take that our distraction also increase? The distractions in the world, diverting attention.
Yes, could be, but also I understand it this way that it distracts people from finding the truth and listening to the genuine message because there are so many diversion in messages and pseudo messages, fake messages that takes the attention of people.
So you're saying it's a barrier to growth. The distractions are a barrier.
Exactly. That's what the way I understood. And we have the writer here that is.
I like your perception, and I that has entered my mind that it could be a major factor.
Yes.
All these distractions. Thank you.
All these distractions, right.
There's so much going on in the world. And in particular, at this time, one becomes aware of that. There is so much that's going on. So that it really takes a very sharp mind and dedicated heart and soul to pick that which is really worthy and focus on that and relevant to our times.
Does anybody else want to volunteer to read, or because I don't want you guys to get tired of my voice? Teresa, since you're here now, would you like to read? We're on page 71, Expansion and Growth of
Page
Christianity
71.
Beyond the Second Century, page 71.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, beautifully.
Okay. Expansion and growth of Christianity beyond the second century. The significant acceleration in growth and expansion of Christianity can be attributed to several key factors: state support, military conquests, and trade and colonialization. These led to its large-scale geographical expansion and mass conversions. In these, conversion by force and/or by degree were important contributing factors. A turning point. The support of Emperor Constantine I, who was baptized on his deathbed in 337 AD, was a pivotal event that brought about a turning point in the growth and expansion of Christianity in its 4th century. Furthermore, Eusebius of Caesarea, court prelate during the reign of Constantine I, played a significant role in formulating what is known as the image doctrine, that is, Christianity and the Roman Empire were complementary and indeed a good fit, made for each other. This image dominated the mindset in the 4th century, thus identifying Christianity with the political and social order of the Roman Empire. To be identified as a Christian conferred prestige. Emperor Theodosius the Great in 380 AD declared Christianity the only legitimate religion of the Roman Empire. Hence, Christianity was transformed from a persecuted minority to an elite status, paving the path to becoming a dominant majority. It became fashionable to be a Christian. Such incentive was deplored a century later by Augustine, Bishop of Hippo. The continued expansion of Christianity in the European continent over the following millennia through conversion of the masses, often through conquest, as in Scandinavia and Muslim Spain, led to almost the whole of Europe becoming officially Christian. Colonial and trade adventures of mainly Spain and Portugal in the late 15th century, to the voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1492 and Vasco da Gama in 1497 and other explorers, led to the discovery of the world then unknown to Europeans. These resulted in the spread of Christianity beyond Europe and the Christianization of the masses. It was not until 1800 AD that Christianity spread throughout the globe and became worldwide.
May I make a request? I think it's, if sometimes when we are starting on a new passage by a reader, if the exact page could be given, because then it helps me also focus on that particular passage.
That was page 71 to 72.
Okay.
Okay, now we're on page 72. Should I continue? Okay, thank you. The future growth of the Baha'i faith. Military conquests and conversion by decree. Although important factors in the growth of Christianity and Islam are not consistent with the explicit teachings of Baha'u'llah. In the growth of the Baha'i faith, other factors come into play. The use of the sword was incompatible with the teachings of Jesus Christ, as he urged his followers to be gentle and meek. May I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. Jesus commanded them to put away their swords. Then said Jesus unto him, Put up again by thy sword into his face, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Nonetheless, the following verses from the New Testament may have provided an excuse to justify the use of sword for conquest and conversion. Then said he unto them, But now he that hath a purse, let him take it, and likewise his scrip. And he that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. In another passage, Jesus warns his followers, Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. This was the excuse Pope Urban II used when he raised the call of the First Crusade against the Muslims. Such misuse of religion for acts of aggression and brutality, invasions, conquests, and the coercive conversion of those conquered and subjugated, abound throughout major periods in the course of the history of Christianity. The Crusades of 1096 to 1270 AD are notable examples. It is inconceivable that any course that the Baha'i faith may follow for its growth and expansion could include the use of force, coercion, or oppression. This assertion can be argued in respect to several fundamental considerations. First, the use of sword for promotion of the Baha'i faith is explicitly forbidden. Holy war, jihad, is an anthem unequivocally prohibited by Baha'u'llah himself. O people of the earth, the first glad tidings which the mother book hath, in this most great revelation, imparted unto all the peoples of the world, is that the law of holy war can be blotted out from the book. Glorified be the all-merciful, the Lord of grace abounding, through whom the door of heavenly bounty hath been flung open in the face of all that are in heaven and on earth. And then again, beware lest ye shed the blood of any one, unsheathe the sword of your tongue for the scapword of utterance, for therewith ye can conquer the citadels of men's hearts. We have abolished the law to wage holy war against each other. God's mercy hath verily encompassed all created things, if ye do but understand. Baha'u'llah replaced the power of the sword with the power of metaphorical sword of utterance, speech. He has ordained that his cause be taught through the power of men's utterance, and not through resort to violence. Arise for the triumph of my cause. Through the power of thy utterance, subdue the hearts of men. Second, conquest and the use of force for promotion of Baha'i faith is at variance with its fundamental principles. Baha'u'llah, in his summons to the kings and rulers, introduced principles of collective security for a lasting peace. These preclude the use of force by any of its component entities. Third, the fundamental principle of the Baha'i faith on independent investigation of truth precludes the use of sword and coercion for conversion. In addressing the next phase of its growth, Baha'i faith must employ approaches and strategies that affirm its animating spirit. Over 150 years into its history, this cause is now well positioned to address its large-scale expansion and accelerated growth, remaining confident in its ultimate victory. Guidance for the worldwide expansion, systemic growth of the Baha'i faith is unfolded within its divine plan. The Divine Plan, Tablets of the Divine Plan. 14 letters known collectively as the Tablets of the Divine Plan compose the charter for the worldwide growth of the Baha'i faith. They were written in 1916 and 1970 by Abdu'l-Baha, the appointed successor to Baha'u'llah, and addressed to the believers in North America. This was only 23 years after the Baha'i faith had reached the Western Hemisphere. All plans in the Baha'i world are unfolding stages of the Tablets of the Divine Plan. These tablets hold the guidance for growth and worldwide spread of Baha'i faith. In them, Abdu'l-Baha called upon the American and Canadian believers to assume the role of leadership in establishing the cause of Baha'u'llah throughout the planet, and to take the message of Baha'u'llah to areas of the globe where it had not yet been heard. In the words of Shoghi Effendi, the divine plan holds within it the seeds of the world's spiritual revival and ultimate redemption. The unveiling. The tablets of the divine plan were unveiled at the end of the First World War in 1919, from 26th to 30th of April, at the 11th Annual Convention and Baha'i Congress in the Hotel McAlpin in New York City. This gathering was designated by Abdu'l-Baha at the Convention of the Covenant. Let this be the Convention of the Covenant, he had cabled. It is noteworthy that during that same period, when the call of Abdu'l-Baha was being raised from taking the message of Baha'u'llah for the redemption of humanity to various tribes, races, and inhabitants in distant parts of the world, another gathering, the Paris Peace Conference, which had convened at the end of the World War, was in session across the Atlantic Ocean. The intent of that gathering was to address the political, social, and economic problems of post-World War Europe in order to assure its future peace and tranquility. Abdu'l-Baha warned, however, that the outcome of that peace treaty would plant the seeds of more severe conflagration. These two events, these two calls, and their anticipated outcomes compel reflection. One planted the seeds for a more severe Second World War. The other planted the seeds for the crystallization of the Baha'i community toward the fulfillment of the vision of Baha'u'llah for the oneness of mankind, a lasting peace, and a global civilization. The Convention of the Covenant had a large attendance of Baha'is as well as other dignitaries. It commenced with an elegant reception in the immense banquet hall of the hotel, a setting surrounded by jubilation with music, poetry, and eloquent talks. Joseph H. Hannen had composed a soul-stirring poem for the occasion, The Call, wherein He referred to those responding to the call of the Master as the heralds of the Golden Age, heralds of the Lord of Lords, urging them to set out throughout the world and unfurl the banner of Baha'u'llah. He concluded with these rousing words: "The great new charters of the world are read. The word hath spoken. Now they feet must tread. From north to south, from east to west, the word, till far and near, his banner unfurled." The language of Abdu'l-Baha in the tablets of the divine plan was poetic, uplifting, encouraging, and ennobling. He called upon the Baha'is to arise and fulfill their noble potential as apostles of Baha'u'llah, as an Israeli of life. He empowered the believers, designating them as the heavenly army, assuring them of ultimate victory, and likening each one as unto a regiment. He reminded them of their high destiny, recalling the station of the apostles of Christ. Consider, the station and confirmation of the apostles in the time of Christ was not known, and no one looked on them with the feeling of importance. Nay, rather, they persecuted and ridiculed them. Later on, it became evident what crowns studded with the brilliant jewels of guidance were placed on the heads of the apostles. The range of your future achievements still remain undisclosed. Abdu'l-Baha expressed his reverent hope that in the near future the whole earth may be stirred and shaken by the results of your achievements. At the same time that Abdu'l-Baha called the believers to immediate action, he also gave an understanding that this process would take centuries, drawing parallels to the growth of Christianity. Throughout the coming centuries and cycles, many harvests will be gathered. Consider the work of former generations. During the lifetime of Jesus Christ, the believing, firm souls were few and numbered, but the heavenly blessings descended plentifully, that in the number of years countless souls entered beneath the shadow of the gospel. The response. Although the divine plan would be held in abeyance until the system necessary to its execution had been brought into being, a few believers responded passionately and sacrificially to the call raised by Abdu'l-Baha to take the lead in the launching of the enterprise to unfurl the banner of Baha'u'llah throughout the world. The focused and rigorous action of the heralds of the Golden Age during the subsequent stages of the unfoldment of the divine plan resulted in the dispersion of the Baha'i faith throughout the world and the diffusion of its light.
Does anybody have any questions? That was, we ended on page 76. We'll be beginning page 77. Does anyone have any comments?
That was such a remarkable gathering at the unveiling of the tablets of the divine plan. And I would want to encourage you, if you're able to reach the original source, you will see that it was a magnificent banquet of many notables. And there were songs and poetry that were read there. It was so stimulating that some individuals just got up and left for different parts of the world, including Mother and Father done for Australia and many others throughout the world.
Wow, it's very spiritual.
That always amazes me, just like the 10-year crusade, that people would be somewhere. I mean, these are the stories that you hear, but it's kind of mind-boggling to me that you would be at an event and not go home, that you would leave there and go somewhere else. That just blows my mind. And the only thing I can think of is that you're spiritually intoxicated. Like you're just so taken away by your experience that the trappings that you left at home are of no consideration to you, that you just are compelled to just flee right then. I can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah, I understand, Karen. I feel like that too.
Joseph Hanan had composed a magnificent poem. I don't have it before me, otherwise I would share it with you. And he says, "O heralds of the golden age, promise of prophets of every sage, rise up and go to spread the news that the whole world would know." It was such a passionate meeting. And some individuals, as you implied, did actually pack up and set out for different parts of the world and made this Baha'i faith universal, reaching all corners of the world, such as Australia and many other areas of the world. That's such a beautiful, beautiful story.
Beautiful.
Unveiling of the tablets of the divine plan and the banquet to rise up and go.
And then ever since 1919 that covenant, the Convention of Covenant, what a long way we have come for our convention, district convention, which is coming very soon for all of us, and then the national conventions. But what's striking to me also is that you have compared two processes that started in that year, in 1919. One was the Paris Conference that they aimed apparently toward peace. And you beautifully mentioned that that actually planted the seeds of a more severe conflagration. And we all remember the World War II that came out of that. While in the same year, maybe not noticeable to the world that much in 1990 in New York, that Convention of Covenant and unveiling of the Tablet of Divine Plan happened. I love this comparison, so beautifully done. Yeah, thank you.
Karen, could you continue on page 77?
I'm online. I mean, I'm in a
Oh,
Kindle.
you're
so
online.
if-
Okay, yeah, the unfolding stages of
okay.
the divine plan.
Got it. The unfolding stages of the divine plan. The flow of guidance through the tablets of the divine plan. The tablets of the divine plan hold the guidance for the ensuing plans of the Baha'i world. Their injunction to go out and spread the message of Baha'u'llah is centered on transformation. If they arise to teach my cause, they must let the breath of him who is unconstrained stir them, and must spread it abroad on the earth with high resolve, with minds that are wholly centered in him, and with hearts that are completely detached from and independent of all things, and with souls that are sanctified from the world and its vanities. And at the heart of all the plans of the Baha'i faith for growth is detachment and purity of character. Abdu'l-Baha calls on the believers to become sanctified and purified. Therefore, rest ye assured in the confirmations of the merciful and the assistance of the Most High. Become ye sanctified above and purified from this world and the inhabitants thereof. Suffer your intention to work for the good of all. Cut your attachments to the earth, and like unto the essence of spirit, become ye light and delicate. The tablets of the divine plan, the major impetus for the growth and expansion of the Baha'i faith, are the wellspring of guidance from which have streamed forth the successive plans of the Baha'i world. After the passing of Abdu'l-Baha, the unfolding stages of the divine plan were directed by Shoghi Effendi and subsequently by the Universal House of Justice. The systematic strategy of these plans devolved in periodic and incremental measures through phases. During the first phase, dispersion was of foremost importance. Sharp focus was placed primarily on the globe spread of the Baha'i community. This phase emphasized the primacy of diffusing the message of Baha'u'llah throughout the areas of the world where it was not yet known. The later phases placed special focus on advancing the process of entry by troops, large-scale growth through the spiritual empowerment of individuals and communities, and a vast increase in the number of adherents and supporters of the Baha'i faith, including registered Baha'is and others. Furthermore, during these phases, emphasis is also placed on geographical spread of activities, albeit in the smaller units of culture in villages and neighborhoods. The aim of all the plans is to lay down the spiritual foundation for the transformation of society toward the construction of a world civilization.
Okay, I think we're going to end here, okay, for today.
Okay.
So we'll start. So your homework, friends, will be to read from page 78, and this is a long chapter. So please, please, if you have notes after reading this for our next session, please feel free to jot them down, highlight, because it is a long chapter. It goes from 78 to 102 for your homework assignment, okay? And we'll catch up on it next week to recap. But anybody have any questions, comments?
Because I'm using a Kindle, could you just tell me what is it
Chapter
the rest
3.
of the chapter?
Oh yeah, so it'll be the entire chapter 3 that you'll need to read
Okay,
before we
all
get
right.
to crystallization and growth. We'll read that together in the
Thank
next session, of course.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a comment.
Yes,
I
please.
want to express my appreciation to all of you because this book I wrote quite a few years ago, and it enables me to look at it in a different way and with an expanded view of what has transpired between that time and now. And it's all been propitious. So I really especially appreciate the focus on this book and your interest in it.
Yeah, so
Thank
next
you.
year is going to be your 10-year anniversary of when you wrote it, because you wrote it in 2016. So, and we'll
Yeah.
probably still be together until we'll see, who knows. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we
it's
appreciate,
fantastic.
we really appreciate that you thought about this theme, which is so beautifully done and is unique because you brought science and metaphors and examples to the process of a spiritual phenomenon for growth. It's beautifully done. I loved it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think, yeah,
Okay.
everybody loves it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to
Mhm.
tell you, Dr. Khodadad, that I got an email from a couple people. One of them is Joyce, and she'll probably be with us the next time, and you could even ask her. But she was so touched by this book that she already suggested it to her ATC. So, and they were
Yes,
like, "Oh, wait, we haven't even heard of this book." So, see,
yes.
there's so many books that, yeah. So this is good.
Yes, beautiful, right. We brought it to our, thank you, Nidajan. We brought it to our cluster 10
Yeah.
years ago too, and it helped many of us to expand our view of the process of the growth. Yeah, thank you. Well
But
done.
one thing to be cautious about, because some people, some individuals have taken this book to mean that, oh, wow, we are not growing. And I think that's not the ultimate outcome, because
No,
that is discouraging, because we are growing, but it has to be in stages, and it's been vital, and it continues in a dynamic fashion, many facets of which we cannot comprehend at the present time.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. And when you wrote this book, it was before the 9-year plan, the present 9-year plan, which is only aim is to release the society building power of the faith. But it's amazing that you have mentioned this even in this section, chapter 3, that is, and you talk about the society building. It's amazing. You were just, it's about, you talked about the goal and the aim that was not even in the previous plans. So yeah, that's wonderful. We are dealing with a genius, really intelligent author, Nidajan. Thank you for
Yeah. No, of
arranging
course.
this.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's like she's bringing her experience, her life,
Yes,
everything. Yeah, it's
yes, yeah.
coming through. Yeah. Yeah,
But
thank you.
thanks and appreciation to Neda and all present in this session.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, I always say, because Karen wasn't here last time, but I always say, or actually she was, but I always say that everybody exudes some ounce of humility for being here. So thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much.